Disclaimer. This video's information is being provided for informational, educational, and general interest purposes only. The information in this video is not intended to shock, enrage, or otherwise provoke the viewer. The sole purpose of this video was to raise awareness of true crime-related events. Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
For allegedly registering a Tea Party leader for solicitations from websites that promote gay dating, pornography, and federal health care, a police chief in western Wisconsin was charged with a misdemeanor. Chief of Police for the town of Campbell, Tim Kellerman, faces a single charge of improper use of an electronic communication system, which has a maximum punishment of $1,000 in fines and 90 days in jail. Even if found guilty, Kellerman would still be able to continue in his role as chief of police because, according to the State Department of Justice, only people convicted of felonies or misdemeanors involving domestic abuse are ineligible to work as police officers. Jim Birnbaum, Kellerman's lawyer, said the charge is unfair. According to Birnbaum, Kellerman did register La Crosse Tea Party leader Greg Luce for the sites, but he did so as payback for Luce's purported advice to Tea Party members to intimidate and harass his officers. "I think it isn't fair when the behavior of the Tea Party has been unchallenged and unabated," Birnbaum stated. Then to have a charge filed against the chief because of, really, an act of frustration is unfortunate. According to Birnbaum, he and Monroe County District Attorney Kevin Croninger have reached an agreement whereby the chief enters a plea of not guilty but can avoid conviction provided he goes through counseling and completes 40 hours of community service. During Kellerman's initial appearance, the parties intended to ask La Crosse County Circuit Judge Dale Pacelle to approve the deal. However, Birnbaum said that Pacelle recused himself from the case due to his professional relationship with Kellerman. Birnbaum stated they would look for an out-of-county judge to provide their approval. A message left at his office after hours was not returned by Croninger. Located just outside of La Crosse, in the town of Campbell, Kellerman oversees a department of 5 officers. Since the La Crosse Tea Party started holding protests on a town overpass that crosses Interstate 90 last fall, he and a conservative organization have been at odds. Kellerman persuaded the town board to enact an ordinance prohibiting signs, banners, and flags on the bridge in October by citing worries that the protests were distracting drivers. Tea Party supporters were enraged by that. According to Kellerman and Birnbaum, Luce retaliated by calling on followers all over the nation to pelt the police department with threatening messages and phone calls. According to police reports, Luce began receiving calls and emails in January from websites that offered gay dating, porn, and health care. A criminal complaint states that La Crosse investigators linked part of the activity to computers at Kellerman's residence and the Campbell Town Hall. Because La Crosse officers were close to Kellerman, La Crosse police turned over the case to the neighboring Monroe County Sheriff's Department. When a sheriff's investigator first approached the chief, he claimed not to know anything about the websites. Afterwards, however, he admitted that he had signed Luce up so they could seek revenge on him. This criminal complaint was filed in La Crosse County Circuit Court against Town of Campbell Police Chief Tim Kellerman. Sheriff Peter Quirin of the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, being first duly sworn, states that, Count 1, unlawful use of computerized communication systems. Tim Kellerman, the defendant mentioned above, on or between January 12 and January 16, 2014, La Crosse County, Wisconsin, did with intent to frighten, intimidate, threaten, or abuse Gregory D. Luce, send a message on an electronic mail or other computerized communication system while intentionally preventing or attempting to prevent the disclosure of his or her own identity, contrary to Sector 947.0125, 2E, Wisconsin Stats, a Class B misdemeanor, and upon conviction may be fined not more than $1,000, or imprisoned not more than 90 days, or both. Probable cause. Complainant relates that he has reviewed incident reports prepared by Detective Jeffrey Spencer of the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, a law enforcement officer believed to be truthful and reliable, which reports are modified in part and quoted herein. On April 22, 14, Detective Jeffrey Spencer was requested by Sheriff Quirin to follow up on a case that was initially reported to the La Crosse Police Department. I was advised that La Crosse Police had begun the investigation and developed a suspect. I was advised that the suspect was Timothy Kellerman, who was the chief of police in the town of Campbell. Due to the close working relationship with the department, La Crosse Police requested that our office review the case and complete any additional follow-up and interview Kellerman. After reviewing the file received by La Crosse Police, Detective Jeffrey Spencer found that on January 21, 14, Gregory Luce reported that someone had signed him up for multiple newsletters as well as created an account under his name and email from Match.com. He also was signed up for SelectQuote.com and received follow-up phone calls from the company. In response, La Crosse Police had requested information from the websites for either IP addresses or were to subpoena a request for IP addresses, however was only able to make contact with Match.com and SelectQuote.com. A list of all the sites as well as approximate time/date Luce was signed up for the site are as follows. IP addresses were obtained from SelectQuote.com and Match.com. Charter Communication was subpoenaed for the records pertaining to the IP addresses used to sign Luce up from Match.com and SelectQuote.com. The IP address for Match.com came back to account holder town of Campbell. The IP address for SelectQuote.com came back to Timothy Kellerman's home address. After reviewing the case, Detective Jeffrey Spencer found that many times Luce was talked about on the LaCrosseTribune.com comment sections. I found that comments showed displeasure for Luce. The commenter used the handle Bill O'Reilly and would address Luce sometimes as Greggy and Lucenut. Both theses variations of his names were sometimes used when signing up Luce for the websites. A subpoena for the records from the La Crosse Tribune was issued, however the response from the attorneys that I was advised needed to be subpoenaed was that they did not keep the records and were not the appropriate entity to be subpoenaed. After contacting the La Crosse Tribune again for the correct person to subpoena, Detective Jeffrey Spencer was advised that they had the records and turned them over to me at that time. I reviewed the records and found that 2 of the IP addresses for the commenter were the same ones that had come back to the town of Campbell and Kellerman's residence. Detective Jeffrey Spencer scheduled a meeting with Kellerman at La Crosse PD for May 27, 14. Kellerman came to the meeting, not knowing the nature of the meeting. Detective Jeffrey Spencer asked Kellerman if he knew Luce. He advised he did and went into some of the history that he and his department had dealt with concerning Luce. Luce is a Tea Party activist and currently has a lawsuit against Kellerman and the town of Campbell for violation of his civil rights due to an ordinance they have that bans signs and banners. Kellerman advised that Luce has caused their department many problems, and because of his actions they have received the massive emails, phone calls, and people trying to hack into their computer system. Detective Jeffrey Spencer explained to Kellerman that Luce had reported that someone had signed him up for multiple internet solicitations. Detective Jeffrey Spencer asked Kellerman if he knew anything about that. Kellerman said, "Do I know anything about it?" "No, I don't know anything about it." Detective Jeffrey Spencer explained to Kellerman that I knew he knew what I was talking about and that was the reason we needed to talk. Kellerman said okay. Detective Jeffrey Spencer explained to Kellerman that we backtracked the solicitations and found that Luce had been signed up for them using a computer at the police station and Kellerman's residence. Kellerman again said okay and asked me where I was going with this. Detective Jeffrey Spencer explained to Kellerman that technically, because it was illegal, we needed to talk to him about it. Detective Jeffrey Spencer asked Kellerman if there was any reason that he was doing this to him, or if he had done anything beyond just signing him up for websites. Kellerman said that all he did was do the same thing that they were getting at the police department. Kellerman said that they had been signed up for and had been getting all sorts of things in their email accounts. Kellerman said that he didn't think anything of it. We discussed the case and the potential consequences. Detective Jeffrey Spencer explained to Kellerman that I was not arresting him and just wanted his cooperation through the process. While discussing it, Kellerman said that it was because Luce was harassing him and his officers and he felt it was the only way to get a little back at him. Kellerman went on to tell Detective Jeffrey Spencer that he didn't know what information he stole from Luce, and advised that it was just using Luce's email to sign him up for newsletters and things which Luce would have to take the time to delete. Kellerman advised that it wasn't to take anything from Luce and just wanted to cause him a hassle because of the hassle that Luce had caused them. Kellerman went on to say that the same thing and worse had been happening at their department. Kellerman advised that someone had tried to get into his personal bank account while all these issues with Luce had started, and others have made remarks hoping that his officers get shot. Kellerman told Detective Jeffrey Spencer that because of all the issues they have had, he went to DCI to try to get help. Kellerman said all they did was tell him to upgrade his antivirus and firewall, and they may be able to walk him through that process, but said there was nothing else that could be done. Kellerman said that he wrote a full synopsis of the issues in hopes that he could get help with his problems. Kellerman later turned a copy of that over to Detective Jeffrey Spencer as well, and it will be added to the report. Kellerman told Detective Jeffrey Spencer that because DCI said what was happening was not a big deal, he felt it was a way to get back at Luce a little and did not realize it was illegal. Kellerman went on to confirm what he had done and said he wasn't going to deny that he did it, but said he didn't think it was that big of a deal. Detective Jeffrey Spencer asked Kellerman what computer he had used at work. Kellerman advised that it would have been his office desktop computer. Detective Jeffrey Spencer asked Kellerman about what he would have used at home, and he advised that he had an old department laptop that he uses now at home. Detective Jeffrey Spencer and Kellerman made arrangements and went to Campbell PD first. Detective Jeffrey Spencer rode with Kellerman to that location. Once they arrived, they met with Matt Olson from DCI and Detective Miller from La Crosse PD, who had been standing by at that location. Due to Kellerman's cooperation, Olson attempted to mirror the hard drive at Kellerman's work computer in hopes we would be able to leave him with his computer operational for work purposes. Due to the time that it takes to mirror the hard drive, Detective Jeffrey Spencer and Kellerman left officers at Campbell PD to wait while the hard drive was being mirrored, and went to serve the search warrant at Kellerman's house. Detective Jeffrey Spencer rode with Kellerman to his residence. Kellerman opened the door and we went with him to his bedroom where he kept the laptop. Kellerman turned the laptop over to Detective Jeffrey Spencer and it was taken to be processed. Detective Jeffrey Spencer and Kellerman then went back to Campbell PD and Detective Jeffrey Spencer met with Olson. A short time later, Olson advised that there was an error while trying to mirror the drive. It was decided to just take the drive for further processing. Kellerman advised that he had everything he needed on the other work computers to continue the daily operations of the department. Before clearing from the search, Kellerman made contact with Town Chairman Scott Johnson and advised him of the situation. Detective Jeffrey Spencer also spoke with Johnson and confirmed that Kellerman had given him accurate information. Detective Jeffrey Spencer also spoke with Kellerman before clearing and did confirm that after he signed up Luce for a Match.com account, he hadn't gone back into the account and didn't try to solicit any more information or pose as Luce. Kellerman advised that he only ever signed him up and would let it go from there. After completing the search warrants and interviews, Detective Jeffrey Spencer cleared from Campbell PD.
911, what's your emergency?
This needs to go with that other stuff. Let's see. That's just an NOS.
This is Jaboris.
Yeah, that's just a.
That's Kyle. That's all the more system.
Yes.
Drivers or upright. I think it will look at it will look down and kind of that little culvert in between kind of the little yeah, it was
We are recording.
Racing side. It was not really sad.
All right, let's try to knock this out quick. So, Jaboris, we are recording of the distance. disciplinary hearing. We're going to go around the room and introduce everyone real quick so we know who's in the room. We'll go ahead and start from one point.
Officer Dickerson with the police department.
Tiger Hanger, representing Officer Dickerson.
Pam Sanders, HR Director.
Chris Noble, Oakland Police.
Patrick South, Chief of Police of Oakland. Okay, so we are here today in reference to case number 2020-02. Jaboris, the allegation is criticism of official acts, which was sustained. Did you get a copy of that?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to ask just a couple of questions going forward, and then we'll move past that portion of it. So this is all stemming from a variety of conversations that occurred while you were having a meeting with David Gerloff, reference to TMPA, survey conduct, a whole bunch of different things. You actually had a text message that listed out all those things. Did you know?
Yes, sir.
Did you know about that before you went to the meeting?
I did.
And then at the meeting, you all sat down and had conversations that were subsequently the issue of the investigation, right?
Sergeant David Gerloff had conversations about it. I was just there.
Okay. So bring us to the point where you all are sitting at the table, and what conversation?
So we met at and we sat down, and first the conversations were casual. How you doing? Actions, chapter, blah, blah, blah. He started speaking about his issues with whatever he had going on here. Most of the time I was on my phone. He had whatever he was trying to achieve as far as his job back office appeal or whatever. Prior to walking in, because we had a conversation outside the restaurant briefly for like 30 seconds, I was like, hey, I want to talk about anything because I got enough going on in my life, which what he was tracking because he actually showed up in October when I was having that situation. So he had an understanding I wasn't trying to participate in whatever beef or issue he had with the department. So that's about it, sir. The conversation stems from that to how you've been, what are you doing now for a living? Do you plan on coming back to law enforcement?
Were there any derogatory comments made about the Oakland Police Department, myself, Commander Noble, or any other member of the police department?
Absolutely, one in uniform. Just girl.
Okay, so what did he say?
Basically that he, along the lines of like he should have never been fired, he was wrong to be fired. He's wanting the best for everyone that's still remaining at the police department. He wants to see change, he wants to see people go, he wants to see some people in different positions, yada yada yada.
So did he say specifically what he wanted?
So with us, at least, he wouldn't go into great detail. He just said we'd see before the coming months what he had up his sleeve as far as yada yada, whether he had to go to like the news or whatever. He didn't go into great details, but he just said he would like to see change and you not be here or whatever, someone else be in position, basically. That's it.
So did he talk about Chief Taylor at the time, or Phil Taylor at the time?
He probably briefly mentioned him, but he'll just brief, like he's a great guy, or he should do this, or he should be here, or whatever. Again, sir, I told him prior to that I didn't want much to do with that.
But it was pretty clear that I think David wanted Phil to be chief, right?
It seemed like he had the intention, so he wanted to be chief.
Okay, and you and Kyle participated a little bit in the conversation, did you all not?
I had conversation, but I didn't participate as far as bashing into the department because I told the girl prior, I got enough shit going on. Speaking of that,
But you stayed at the table.
I sat at the table at breakfast.
Time to say, David, I don't need to be around this. You get up and leave.
No, sir. I sat there. I had my two tacos. When the conversation would change as far as who's he working for now and what's he doing, then I interject here and there. But as far as what he was talking about, as far as the department, I didn't care for.
Well, if you didn't like it, why didn't you get up and leave?
I was just having breakfast with a sergeant I hadn't seen in months.
Well, and let's be clear, if you saw the email, it's not really what he wanted to do was a long list of things, correct?
From the original text he sent me was on Sunday. He said that, hey, I'm trying to get a TMPA survey, yada, 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 for morale, yada, yada, yada. What do you think about participating? I called my supervisor, and I was still here in Oakland. I just got off shift. I was at HEB. called my supervisor, let him know. He said, hey, maybe a good idea, whatever. I didn't do
So
nothing.
you called Chris Wall
My supervisor.
on Sunday.
Right after I got the text. Because I hadn't heard from the girl since October. So to receive the text, I was like, I hadn't talked to you forever. So
And you called and talked to him, and you told him about everything that was going on.
I just said I got this text and said this and this and this. What do you think what are you saying?
What he said.
He said I don't see anything wrong with my house.
And then y'all got another text after that, right?
I believe so. I don't remember what it says specifically, but I believe so.
The real long one?
Yeah.
He's gonna get it.
You gave it to us. It says,
I
first
didn't,
they're going to give me a list of demands, then if
I
I
didn't
don't
give it
comply
to
with
you.
them.
no, I didn't give it to him.
Okay, let me pull it back up here. Yeah. That's the first of it, and then just keep going.
First part of it is,
Yeah, I remember that when I said
and the fact that it wasn't just a survey, it wasn't a Morehouse survey, it was going to be a list presented to me that if I didn't comply with it, I would be taken to the city manager and potentially council and media.
But again, me and Gerloff had that conversation, and I didn't want anything. So I wouldn't be a part of that 75%.
Everybody knew ahead of time that that's,
He said he sent it to a large chunk of the police department.
so you may have been there eating breakfast, but that was the actual intent of what Duke wanted to meet with y'all, right?
I didn't speak to him, set up the breakfast, so I didn't know what his intentions were. I got invited by officer, so I went to breakfast.
Did Kyle tell you why?
No, he just said, hey, Gerloff's coming through town, he just got off, he works night shift, we're gonna meet at the East Coast to have some breakfast. Okay.
So what if in the comments that Kyle made during that conversation that would have been derogatory towards the police department or
Nothing, he just mainly just listened to what Gerloff said, let him go off to see. Again, no one in uniform, because me, myself, and Kyle, we only two officers on duty, other than Officer Marco, he was already off duty.
y'all had a conversation about, what was his name?
The gentleman,
Walnuts.
Walnuts?
the one that got hit by the train. We didn't have a conversation. Officer's lawyer mentioned that he had his first tasing since Sergeant or Gerloff had been gone.
Okay.
And I heard that story from Marco 100 times. So I wasn't really paying attention. I was just on my phone at that point.
Were y'all having that conversation loud enough for other people in the restaurant to hear?
It may have been loud enough, but at the same time, again, I was on my phone. But I know the conversation was being had.
And did Kyle make derogatory statements at any point in time?
About,
The police department, us, or anything else?
no, just listen to what Gerloff had to say. So, sir, to be honest, when Gerloff was talking, none of us really gave a shit. Excuse my French. I didn't care what his beef was with you. Like, that's not my business. I had enough shit going on with Selena at the time, and then obviously my courses was I didn't care. So I expressed it to Sergeant Gerloff, like, hey, I don't care what your beef is. I'm here to have breakfast. I hadn't seen you since October, since you came and visited me when I got in trouble. So how you lost weight, what are you doing in life? So that's all I was really there for.
Well, I know you're a young officer and everybody else are young officers too, but David's not really fond of the police department right now, and to go down with him knowing that there's certainly other things coming up. Did you really think that was a good idea?
To be fair, I didn't know the extent of why he was fired, what he had going on, because I hadn't spoken to him since October. I hadn't inquired why he was fired. I didn't give a shit. Again, I had enough going on in my life. I don't care what anyone else has going on as far as their determination.
So then at some point in time, you guys ended up over at Marco's house, right?
Yes, after we met with you in your office. We were there briefly, then Commander Noble called us to his office and we got. So we spoke.
While you were at Marco's, did you all have a conversation about what your answers were going to be?
We informed Officer Marco what was going on because he wasn't there prior to when we met you. And then maybe 4 or 5 minutes after being there, Commander Noble called us back to the office, and that's when we moved in. And then after we left there, we went to just start patrol. We didn't talk the rest of the shift to each other. we just dispersed.
Well, I'm gonna go back and ask the question again for you. So while you were there, did anyone have a conversation about what to say to internal affairs?
Not while I was there. Again, he was there for a brief minute. He never know what called it back. We only went because we thought he wasn't really answering his phone. And he didn't believe us that we were like, hey, we're in trouble for going to have breakfast. So we went over there to let him know, like, yo, we're in trouble for going to have breakfast. And then we got called back.
Your initial impression may be you got in trouble for going back. You know now that that's not.
Yeah, now I know, but then that's what we were under the impression of.
So somebody there with the group that you were with said, yeah, we talked about how we were going to answer to internal affairs.
If he spoke with someone offline, I was there. I was
I'm not lying, it was with all y'all.
I was present.
If they said you were?
I'd like to see who said so.
Your whole part of this, Jaboris, is really participating in not getting, you should have gotten involved.
I should have. Now looking in hindsight.
It's basically violating that is an issue. There's also a couple of other things we're going to talk about today too. In addition to that, there's some social media in here. Basically, we're going to go over some things with you that are concerning to us because we have an interest in trying to ensure you're going to continue to be employed. And you're going to have to make some changes.
And I got to do so.
And so we're going to go forward with that and kind of look at what some of those things are. Once again, I want to defer to Mayor Nelson on some of these understanding what they are.
And we discussed the social media post about the when Gerloff had about the APD shooting where the guy was killed. Specific, to KXAN.com. Police responding officer involved shooting in Southeast Austin. And then Gerloff responded, yeah, somebody about to get federally effed. Bad shooting all day long. Of course, not surprising considering the agency. And then you responded directly to him, well, when you have a master corporal as your range master, how could you go wrong? And your explanation was that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that as a military range master or sergeant would say, one shot, one kill.
It's an
And
infantry model.
what's that?
It's an infantry model.
Infantry. And then after that, you told me that it was meant to be funny.
It was just a joke.
It was a
I
joke.
took a little part of what he said as far as bad shooting. I was meaning to say not necessarily because it only took just one shot.
And then we talked about the perception as well about about the master corporal, and that is a term that's referred to as one of our newest employees, Sergeant John Coffey, who had that title of master corporal at APD as a range master.
I mean, like I said before, I hadn't met Sergeant Coffey prior to that, so I wasn't speaking directly about it.
Okay.
This is one of the things that we're talking about that's going to have to change.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm sure you could understand that making a joke, whatever term you like to use, about somebody getting shot and killed by the police, would you think that would be funny if it were aired out publicly?
No, sir.
Okay.
It was a guilt time.
Do you think it would be funny to the family of the person that was
Absolutely.
killed by the police?
No, sir.
And you can certainly see the perception of how that in no way can I make the leap that you were actually talking about a military position as opposed to a specific individual.
Well, I wasn't talking about the rank structure itself. I was talking about the one shot.
Okay. Again, the perception is that you're making a disparaging comment.
Where did you come up with master corporal?
I just hear it float around the police department all the time. Prior to me meeting Sergeant Coffey.
Okay. And so using that, and That is who you were referring to, correct?
No.
But back to then, why would you put that term in?
It's just funny, so I had a bad joke.
Yeah, it was a bad joke.
It was a bad joke.
What would you do differently now?
I would have gone to breakfast and I would have responded to her off on social media.
Again, we're not worried about who you had breakfast with.
I would have responded to her off at all.
We're not worried about Gerloff. Of course, we're not worried about him. We're worried about the conversation that occurred there that was overheard by other people. That was their perception.
Well, that was
Part
never
of
the
being
intention
bashed.
of me going to have breakfast. My
Jaboris'
intention
intent is you had the opportunity to walk away.
which I should have.
And when your attention, you had knowledge about what they wanted to talk about. So a reasonable person would assume that, hey, he's going to probably say some stuff that I don't need exactly to be in uniform around or in public when he's starting to do that. Right? Right.
Bad judgment on my part.
Being spirited in the department, why, so that's,
And then last, what do you think? Sergeant Coffey will think about that when he sees it. And he will.
I'll apologize to him when he comes back from, if he takes it offensively, I will apologize to him.
What do you think he's going to do? What do you think he's going to think?
I want to tell you right now.
I haven't actually met or had an interaction with anyone else, and what you may think of it.
Whether regardless of whether Sergeant Coffey has offense with Jaboris, I do.
Yes, sir. And then I apologize to you, and I apologize to him for it as well.
Do you have anything else you want to answer? Do you have anything else you want to add?
My apologies for even having had this situation. That's it.
Like I said, Jaboris, you're good, you're a young officer. There's rough edges we got to take care of, some training and some other issues, which is value for a member of the police department. Then to go off onto this tangent with other people who are disgruntled and just want to cause problems, I mean, that's not a really smart thing to do.
I had a bad judgment call.
With social media attached, other things that you say, you need to pay attention to what you say and when you say it.
Yes, sir.
We are a professional organization. It is a business. It is not a fun time for everybody, but you have to be a professional individual when you're here. Yes, sir. Do we need to take a break? Tyler, do you have anything you want to say?
No, sir.
All right, termination to case for the basic mass or official mass on this remains sustained. For discipline, I'm going to provide educational-based discipline in this matter. You're going to be placed in a performance improvement plan for 180 days. Where we're going to develop your skills as an officer and to hone some of those issues and things that we need to do better. We'll be given a full plan to review what wants to do.
I have to create it.
So it'll be like an in-department type of thing. I don't have to take the classes or...
Maybe.
You might have to take some, but we'll provide that for you. If you complete the 180-day plan successfully, you'll find discipline. If you do not complete it successfully in the 180 days, then you will be subject to additional discipline up until and including termination. Yes, sir. Do you have any questions? Absolutely. And you're done. Jaboris?
Yes, sir.
You're a good kid. I see a lot of myself in you when I was your age.
You told me something.
You've got to learn to tone it down some.
You don't have to worry about that anymore, sir.
I can't, yeah, you're right there to where you won't be able, I know this is the only thing you want to do in your life. I know that. I know how you feel about it. Okay? Don't screw yourself.
Yes, sir.
This is what we teach you. You learn from it. Do like we ask you to do, and we'll make you one of the best police officers you've ever known.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Have a great day, Mr.
Thank you, you too.
On to the next one.
So you didn't think it was going to be that much fun today?
What's that?
You didn't think it was going to be that much fun
I
today?
didn't think it's long, but
Well,
Yeah, me neither.
it's nice to have just a meeting in person. I don't have many of those.
and I told
Yeah.
you what I was interested in the beginning. So it's no different than what I was talking about. So, because it's pretty straightforward. I mean, this is a minor issue. They were trying to make it into a bigger thing. I mean, I'm slapped Kyle to death. I am not impressed with Kyle.
With who?
Kyle Wooten with his responses today.
Like I told you, I really think it's great. I mean, I've had enough discussions, and I really didn't do much. I understand your perception of it and your interpretation of it. I got the exact same thing during my discussion, so I think he's being genuine. I wish I could. But I certainly understand why you perceive it that way, but I got the same attitude here. Jaboris was one member, pretty detailed. Yeah, here's what we're talking about. That was Jack over the phone, but he knew. Marco's an idiot, but he's a nice kid.
Actually, Marco, had he not come back, he would have been the same. Had he not actually brought that forward the way he did, there's a good chance I would have fired at least 3 people today. Because I'm not going to tolerate omissions at all. I can't do anything with that. If you lie and you're not going to be truthful and not come off of it, then there's nothing I can do with that as a police officer. That's the one thing I really
Trust me, I've been working with PD officers for almost 20 years.
back when we were in I and
Yeah.
APD, I mean, I sit there and go, why? Why are you doing law? Why? It doesn't do me. Hey, you're just.
Your mind about that press out today.
What happened?
They turned down a huge contract, like
Oh,
35
sure.
million, wants 45 million or something. He wants like crazy money.
I'm not a Cowboy fan. I'm
Not either. I'm not either.
I'm a Texans fan. So
I'm not a Texans fan. Yeah.
So I've been sleeping. I've been trying to.
I mean, I'm kind of a Cowboy. Kind of. I hated him growing up. I've kind of gotten where.
Yeah.
But college football fan.
No, true. Yeah. So do not disturb. So
Apparently, he turned down a huge contract, and so now
35 million a year ain't bad.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay. On that, let's see. You already signed it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll get you a copy of this for me.
Make sure my watch is on.
Right. Okay, May the 21st, 2020. It's 9 minutes after 5 p.m. Meeting to discuss IA case 20-02. I'm sorry. 20-02, yes. And allegations made against you. And here to discuss that and interview you about it.
Okay.
And for the purpose of the recording, we'll introduce ourselves. My name is Chris Noble with the Elgin Police Department.
My name is Jaboris Dickerson. I'm an officer with the Elgin Police Department.
I'm Tiger Hand officer. I am attorney representing Officer Dickerson.
Okay. And what we're here to discuss is the content of a conversation that was had on the morning of May the 13th, last Wednesday, and while you were at Jalisco restaurant.
Yes, sir.
And then actions subsequent after that. If you would, just walk me through
From
how,
start to finish.
I'm sorry,
Start to finish.
start to finish, but I would like you to start with what it was how you ultimately got there. You know, was there, starting with any messages or anything that you'd gotten like the week before?
Okay, so that prior weekend was our long weekend.
Mhm.
It was Sunday when we got off work. I went to HEB here in Elgin to do some shopping before I got home. And I got a text message from Sergeant Grilloff. I hadn't heard from Sergeant Grilloff since
Right.
So I thought it was a little strange. So I read the message and I saw what it said. I texted Wooten and I was like, hey, did you get this? He said, yeah. So I was like, shit, you know. So I called Sergeant Wong and I let him know what I had received because I had talked to Sergeant Grilloff since October.
Okay. And this was while you were at HEB?
This is while I was at HEB here now.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We were off duty already. We had just went 42.
Okay.
So I called Sergeant Wall and I let him know what the message said, and I read it to him before I walked into HEB. And I asked him, like, hey, what do I do about this, or what should I do about this? He said, I don't think it's a bad idea to have a morale boost for the police department. And that was the end of our conversation. So we get off the phone. I didn't text her off back because I was still unsure about his text message, because in my mind I was already battling with, well, I already got my stuff going on as far as October. I don't care about this. So we come to work that Wednesday. Officer Wooten was like, hey, Sergeant Gerloff's getting off work. He's coming through town. He wants to have breakfast. I was like, cool. So he invites me and Officer Marco to breakfast, and we go to Jalisco's.
Okay.
While we're at Jalisco's, we're doing a bunch of catching up. He's telling us about his job and who he works for. That's how we initially started the conversation. Some billionaire jewelry lady. Then we started talking about how he's going to do a contract possibly overseas for a few months. And then we got into a small brief conversation about what this survey is ultimately trying to achieve. Because our concerns at the table were, well, what are you trying to get out of this? And once he told us, we were like, oh, okay, cool. So our attention just kind of went from there to here to there to here as far as we were talking about my ordeal, not my course, also a crap ton of weight. So we were talking about him getting like any surgeries or anything like that, and that was pretty much the gist of the conversation as far as what we talked about.
Okay.
And how I got to the least those.
Okay. Let's go back when you got that text message and you called Sergeant Wall. And so, what did he say again to you?
He said that he thinks it'd be a good idea for a morale survey to happen at the police department just to see where we were as a department, as far as everyone's like, hey, how can we improve this? How can we improve that? Things of that nature. So when we had that phone conversation at HEB, like I said, I didn't text Sergeant Burlock back because I was like, I already got this going on. So I was like,
okay. And what day was that again?
I got that text message Sunday after we got off work when I was at HEB here in Elgin.
Okay. And what shift were you on? You were on day shift?
I was on day shift, yes, sir.
So
I was on day shift. It was like a little after 6:30 because we stayed here for pass down all of the good jazz.
Okay. And that was the Sunday before?
Yes, sir. That was the Sunday before Wednesday at Jalisco's.
Okay. All right. Then on Wednesday morning. And how did it get planned out of how y'all were going to go eat breakfast or go take your meal break?
It wasn't. Officer Wooten showed up for work that day and he was like, hey, Sergeant Goodluck, he works night shift. He's getting off at this time. He said he'd be through town this time. We're going to go get breakfast. I was like, cool. We already had eaten Jalisco's breakfast already that prior shift we had. I think it was that Sunday, actually. Right. So the breakfast wasn't that great. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I had coffee from QT's and we went and I sat and had 2 tacos and we just kind of had a miniature breakfast there.
Right.
So that's how we got there.
Okay, but there was no contact or there was...
I didn't reach out to Grilloff for breakfast.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And, but you were there because Wooten...
He invited me to breakfast. Yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, it was nice to see Grilloff too, sir. I hadn't seen him since October, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And when y'all got to the restaurant, did y'all walk in together, or was
We walked in together.
Okay.
We met outside in the parking lot just to wait to see if Grilloff actually showed up. And once he showed up, first we talked outside for a brief moment because I was like, oh man, you look super skinny. Like I was just astounded at how much weight he lost. So we talked outside briefly, and then we went inside to have breakfast.
Okay. And where'd y'all sit in the restaurant?
Kind of. That was only my second time being in Jalisco, so it's kind of like in the back, kind of to the left side of the restaurant, but it was kind of in the center. It's the way it's set up. We weren't in the booth, we were right next to the booths.
Okay.
So
Back by the bar area?
kind of, sort of.
Okay. All right. When y'all sat down and started talking, well, on your way in, did you notice if there was any other people in the restaurant?
I just noticed the workers, it was pretty empty from what I remember.
Okay. Anybody in the booths around you?
Not at the time. There was no one in the booth that I remember at the time being in there. I remember later on, a female did come into the restaurant and she sat, like if this is the booth that we were sitting in, she kind of sat like right here.
Okay.
So.
All right. During y'all's conversation, while you're sitting at the table, what was the gist of that?
It's just the conversations we were having at the table. Like I said, a bunch of catching up. We were trying to have conversations with Sergeant Beloff about, hey, are you done with law enforcement? That was one of my questions with him. I was like, hey, are you done with law enforcement? He was like, no, I've been doing it for 13 years. I'd like to continue and get my 20. I was like, cool. Then we started talking about his contract situation where he wants to go overseas for 3 months and try it. He's been talking about that with his wife, and I was like, cool. Then we talked about the situation with Officer Dudley and Officer Brefillian with the Michael, the dude that got hit by the train.
Walnuts.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a conversation about him briefly, which struck a conversation with Officer Mark. I'm like, oh, hey, while you've gone, the most exciting thing happened to me in my career was when he did that unwanted person or whatever that guy was. I wasn't here still on that call, and we had a brief conversation about that, and then we moved back on to him telling us how his boss has fired like 3 or 4 people because they're trying to sleep with his employer. So, yeah.
Let's go back to your conversation talking about things that have happened. Lay that out for me.
Just things that happen as far as.
Is there anything, well, first of all, were there any discussions about police administration?
From our end, no.
Policies? Okay.
From my end, let me be specific, from my end, no.
Okay.
So when we were having a conversation with Sergeant Gerloff and he was talking about his situation or whatever he has going on, I specifically told him, Sergeant Gerloff, I don't really want to be involved with it. Whatever you have, I support your survey if it's for morale purposes. But I already have enough going on over here as far as my current situation. And then I got back on my phone.
Okay.
That was it. From my end.
Okay. Any discussions, any comments made by anybody else at the table?
No one in uniform made any discussion and any negative comments towards any person at this police department.
Okay.
Now, briefly, Sergeant Gerloff, I will say he said some comments. What specifically, I don't remember because, again, that's whatever he has going on with the chief, and which I told him several times, like, hey, that's your business.
Okay.
So no one, for myself and Officer Wooten, we specifically stayed available for calls, and we specifically stayed away from whatever Sergeant Gerloff would teeter into that realm of, like, no, because no.
Okay.
It makes no sense to do
You
so.
said nobody in uniform. Well, Marco was there, but not in uniform.
He had his badge, so he didn't do any disparaging comments. Again, he was sitting there like this. I was sitting next to him, and he had his stupid hand up in the air the whole time, so I was usually making fun of him for doing that because he's trying to get circulation or whatever. But no, sir.
So you're positive that nothing was said?
From us in uniform that are employed with the police department.
No, I mean,
right.
Yeah, from employees.
Right.
Okay. Was there any discussion about the use of a taser or any type of...
Like I said, we mentioned so when we talked about Walnut's situation, we had a brief conversation about what's the right amount of force and what's taser. Because we had a brief conversation with those 2 officers at the time that met him before. And we were speaking briefly about how Sergeant Wall had an encounter with him at the Soulful Restaurant here on Main Street, and he grabbed him, right? And him and Bishop had that huge fight with him. So that's what struck Officer Marco. He was like, oh, by the way, I had mine. Like, this is what happened with mine, and he was super excited, and I've heard it a billion times. So again, I tuned into my phone because Marco tells that story and James gets.
Okay. Anything mentioned about administration, or specifically me and or the chief, about either criticizing the use of tasers or encouraging the use of tasers?
If it was from Sergeant Gerloff, and again, I tuned that out. I can't stress it enough that whatever he had going on, I made it clear to him I want nothing to do with it because I already have enough going on. At the time I had Selena, was stressing about that Selena thing about her complaining, and I had my own. So I was like, nope, I don't want nothing to do with that. So.
Right. What about Wooten? Is he saying anything?
No, sir. We were kind of on the same page. We would just look at each other when he would make some comments. We'd be like, so it makes no sense for us as officers who've been here for me almost 2, going on 2, and Wooten almost in a year, to go out in public and say something stupid with just the workers there that I paid attention to, and then the lady that later came on in the restaurant with her dog.
Right.
Makes no sense to do so, especially with Sergeant Gerloff, and I hadn't seen him in 10 months.
Okay. So I'm I don't want to put words in your mouth. So what you're saying is that, did you find it alarming what Gerloff was saying, or
not to the point to where I needed to get up and just leave? Because, like I said, it was just a brief topic, and then we would switch immediately. Because no, we don't participate. We've never participated in something like that in public. I wouldn't do that here, or if I go to my National Guard over the weekend. Like, it doesn't make any sense to do it. I don't gain anything from it, especially if you guys have been so after October. So it just makes no sense for us to go out and do such. So,
well, I don't. Maybe alarming wasn't the right word, but disconcerting enough.
I don't remember what he said specifically, but I didn't get up to leave, so I don't think it was to that point to where I needed to get up and leave and be like, oh, no, I don't think it was anything like that.
Did you tell anybody about the conversation afterwards?
As far as the 3 that was at that table, I told Sergeant Wall, well, I didn't tell Sergeant Wall, but we had me, Wooten, and just me and Wooten, really, because Marco went home. We told Sergeant Wall, like, hey, this is what the conversation was about afterwards.
Where'd that happen?
But it was just over phone, really, because we left, and I think Wooten called him while we were out there, and then we just started running traffic stops after that. We just went right to work. Okay. Like I said, we left our stuff available when no calls came through, and then afterwards we just started running traffic.
What was Sergeant Wall's advice to you?
Well, I can only speak about Sunday, because that's the only time I really talked to Sergeant Wall about it. It was Sunday. And he said that he thought a morale survey for the department couldn't be a bad thing if it was.
Okay, but on Wednesday after the meeting, when
after breakfast, I didn't really speak to Sergeant Wall about it. Like I said, I just went straight to work.
Okay. You didn't meet up anywhere after?
After work, we didn't meet up, and no, we went to work.
Okay.
That was Wednesday. Thursday is when you called us in to meet with Chief.
Yes.
Right. That's when we met up after the Chief's meeting. Okay. But that Wednesday, no, we just went straight to work.
Okay. And was it spoken about or discussed any time later in the day?
On Wednesday?
Yeah.
Not that I remember. I can't recall.
Can't recall?
I can't recall. I don't remember.
So
well, I know I didn't do it. I mean, I went to work, so if anyone else did, I can't speak for them. I didn't do it. It was just a breakfast Gerloff. Didn't think much of it.
Okay. When you did speak with Wall after breakfast, was that by phone?
I didn't speak to him directly. I did not call him. I think Officer Wooten may have called him. I didn't call him directly. Again, I went and started doing traffic stops, sir.
How'd you know about that phone call then?
It was probably in the parking lot. If I remember correctly, it was in the parking lot of the police post after we kind of dispersed.
Okay.
Or Sergeant Gerloff dispersed from us.
I mean,
from the gist of the conversation that they had amongst each other, it was just like, hey, this is what we talked about, this is what it was, and that was it. We went to work. I don't know, I think we ran like 30 traffic stops that day. We just went to work.
Why do you think Wooten felt compelled to call the supervisor after?
Probably the same reasons I did when I got that text on Sunday. The conversation, like I said, I hadn't talked to Gerloff. So for him to have this random text message to me and then send the second text message out I felt the need to tell my supervisor because it's what we're trained to do. It's like, hey, Sarge, I got this. This is what happened. I met with this person. This is the gist of the conversation. Here you go. That's just the CYA. Like, here's that. This. So that was that.
And back at the restaurant, we're talking about your use of force incidents. Did y'all discuss when Wooten had to take a guy to the ground over on, was it Blue Ridge Parkway or?
The drunk.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about that.
It was probably like a 30-second conversation. Hey, my first time having a guy pull away from me was a drunk. His aunt lived right there. He pulled away from me, and I took him to the ground, and I laid on top of him and said, you will not do, or what did he say exactly? You will not, or this is not a game, or something like that. It's on the body camera. He just reiterated what he said to do. Mm-hmm. We all laughed and chuckled because I was there on scene and I seen it happen, so I thought it was funny that, because Wooten's so calm and he's just so goofy, so to see him like, it's kind of like, come on, dude. Right. So that was the whole conversation with that, right there in itself.
Okay. Was there any discussion about, I forgot his name now, I can't remember, Walnuts?
The dude get hit by the train.
Fascia,
I think his name's Matthew.
Yeah.
I want to say it's
Matthew, F.O.
Matthew Fusilano.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. We had a brief conversation about him. Again, that's when Dudley and Christian had that interaction with him outside Specs. Mm-hmm. We were like, hey, yeah, that was the last time anyone that we know really had to go hands-on with the dude, because we were like, hey, remember the guy that Sergeant Wall, I think Sergeant Beloff was still here when that happened. Mm-hmm. We're like, hey, remember the dude, blah, blah, blah. We were just having a conversation with Sergeant Beloff, catching up on everything. And he was like, yeah, I remember him. He was like, oh, well, they recently had to deal with him, and they had to take him to the ground. Dudley was going to tase him, but Christian managed to subdue him. They got him in cuffs, problem solved. Struck up the conversation with Marco. Oh, by the way, I had my situation.
Okay. Was there any conversation or comments made about the administration, particularly with that incident or the critique? Yes.
Not that I remember.
Okay. Not that you remember?
Not that I remember. I honestly don't remember.
Could it have occurred?
It could have, but it couldn't have not. I don't remember, sir. Okay. So I'm not going to say yes or no. I don't remember. I really don't remember. So
okay. I'm just trying to balance, what what was allegedly heard by other people.
But I honestly don't. I don't remember. So I don't want to say yes. No, I truly don't remember. So if that was said, or if any of that was said, then I don't remember. And if it was, I don't think it was anything negative. Okay. But I don't remember if anything he said. So.
Okay. Nothing to the extent of, they don't want us to tase anybody before, but now they want us to tase everybody.
I don't remember. The fact that you say that, I don't remember.
Something along that line.
Yeah, I don't remember that being said. I don't remember. Truly, I don't remember.
Okay. All right. On Thursday, after y'all got called in,
It was like cutting off my circulation. The key in my pocket, the Tahoe key, bigger than the other keys.
after getting called in by the chief, what happened after that?
So we left out. Sergeant Wall was the last one to leave out the office because he thought that Chief wanted him to stay, whatever. As we were walking outside the back of the police department, Sergeant Wall was like, hey, let's meet over there where Marco stays behind HEB. I was like, cool. As we were going over there, that's when I think you radioed me and Wooten to come back.
Right.
So while you were radioing me and Wooten to come back, Sergeant Wall had asked me to call Marco and say, hey, Marco, this is what's going on. Meet us in your subdivision. But you radioed us to come back. So that's when me and Wooten came back to meet with you in your office.
Okay.
And then after your office is when we went back to talk briefly about, hey, Marco, this is what's going on. It's something about the breakfast. We don't really know much about it other than this is what Chief said. And then we all dispersed. It was like maybe 4 or 5 minutes.
How'd y'all What made y'all decide to go to Marco's house?
Just to talk. That's where he was. He was on his pain meds because of his thumb. That's why he went home that day. So we felt the need to go and tell him, like, hey, Marco, this is what's going on, so it doesn't blindside you. This is what just happened to us, and while we were called in. And once he knew, he left.
Okay. Was there any discussion on how an explanation for the event was going to be
No,
crafted?
because like I said, Chief didn't really give us much when we met with him, other than I know what's said, and I know this is what happened, and LTC or Commander knows going to be doing an IA on you, and get out of my office. Okay. So we told Marco, hey, we're going to get an IA on this for having breakfast or grill off. We don't know much about it, but here it is, and we dispersed, and we took off.
Okay. Have you had any discussions with any of your coworkers about this? That
No.
you were involved in it? Anybody else?
No.
Since then?
No. Not since you had us sign the DNA. No.
Okay. How about before?
No, because that was the same day on Thursday. Yeah. And the only people at work were us three. So,
okay.
No.
Has anybody approached you?
So yesterday people had questions while we weren't at the meeting, and I told them I could not discuss.
Okay.
And that was it.
Okay.
And that was in the parking lot. So once everyone came back and we were here clearly for a duty, they were like, hey, why are you guys? I can't. And so
Yeah.
that was it. That was it.
Okay. I don't have any more questions about that specifically, or about that event. But I do want to talk to you about the photograph.
Okay. Maya? Oh, this is not it.
Oh, so what is the context of that?
So this is the shooting that happened at the apartment complex in Austin recently. The gentleman that got hit with the non-lethal shotgun first, or rifle, whatever he got hit with, and then he tried to drive off, and it was a one-shot, one-kill. Well, this was a joke, right? Because in the Army we say one shot, one kill if you have a master sergeant. That's all this is. He made the comment, whatever, Sergeant Riloff, and then that's why there's this and the zip face. That's all there was, sir, to them. It wasn't disparaging to anybody here in the police department, or it wasn't anything negative. It was literally he shot one shot, and the dude that was the end of the situation.
Why do you have Master Corporal in quotation marks?
Because of the rank.
Okay. Who are you referring to in that?
The rank, sir. It's just the rank. It's not a shot at anybody specifically. It's just the rank. That's it.
But you have it in quotation marks.
Right. It's just the rank. Everything else doesn't need to be in quotation marks because it's just leading up to, hey, this is the Master Corporal, and if you have one, it only takes that one shot, i.e. this situation, and it's resolved.
Okay. Are you referring to Sergeant Coffey in his
No, I hadn't
former
met
rank
him.
as a Master Corporal at the Austin Police Department?
I hadn't met him at the time. At this time, I hadn't met him. I've never formally met him during this. I just knew he started working here. I hadn't met the guy, so no. I don't talk about people. I haven't met him. So,
Okay.
like I said, it was just in regards to this. Big dude shot one shot, and the situation was done. It didn't take all 30 officers out there to shoot all the rounds they had. It literally took one shot. So, obviously, it was just like a little joke.
Then how do you get that context of the conversation based upon Gerloff's comment?
Because he said it was a bad shooting. Nah, it was one shot. My mind's weird, sir, so bear with me. He said it's a bad shot, and I'm like, no, it only took one. That led to my comment. So that's the end of that. And even still, I didn't comment after that either. I was just like, no, it's just one shot. It wasn't bad. It was just a one shot. Pow. Problem solved.
So, and you can say almost just about anything you want to on social media.
It can be taken, yeah.
However, what I'm getting at is what you're telling me that is in no way directed at EPD employee, Sergeant John Coffey.
He's a great guy. After I've met him since then, he was a great dude. He just asked me just a minute ago, was I going to the range? But I can't because I got my kid this weekend. So he's a great dude.
It's not related to his former position as a range master or instructor at APD.
No.
Because of an APD shooting that girl off.
No.
Do you see how the perception is?
I do, sir. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But He's a great dude. He's pretty cool. Yeah, he's pretty cool. So, like I said, when I met him recently, dude's been nice. He's always smiling. He's kind of like an older version of Wooten. He's always just smiling. It's like okay, cool. So,
When did you post that?
oh, I don't remember. Whenever this incident happened, I don't remember specifically, but I remember seeing it. Yeah, it was a news article on Facebook, and I read it, and I just reposted it. I didn't think he would comment, but because I usually post things like this on my Facebook anyway, anything that involves officers in general, good or bad, I usually post it just because I like to read the articles and I like to keep other people aware. Like my hometown Cleveland, 3 murders in the last 2 months. So I think if you check Facebook now, it's just like those posts, and I always post stuff like that. That's it. It's usually cooking stuff too, so if you want to learn how to cook some good stuff, it's on there.
Okay. You've been completely truthful in all your answers to
Yes,
the
sir.
questions today. You answered each question I've asked you fully and completely.
Yes, sir.
All right. This concludes the interview. It is 5 minutes after hour, say at 5:36.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't go 41 when I got here. I didn't let her know I was a baseball, but I did clock in. I figured we'd be done before 6, so I didn't need to.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Clock in. Yeah, you can keep that.
Okay. You want this one? I'm just going to throw it right here.
All right.
I like this thing.
Tyler?
The Dudley, oh man, sir, it's so spacious in there, but the turn radius, because I feel like a little person in there, I'm like, oh. So yesterday I was trying to do my first traffic stop on 95, but I had to turn around with somebody, and I was like turning, and I was like, oh, it's like it's going forever. So I was just turning around forever, as opposed to the Explorers. I was like, oh man, but this thing is nice.
Yes, they are. They are. All right. Good work. Do you need anything tonight, y'all home?
Yeah, do you want me to wait to start working until 6, or just go ahead?
Get yourself ready to go.
Okay. You wanted me to hear outside, sir?
You were on the same day.
911, what's your emergency?